keep my introduction short. I'm Jennifer Tank. I'm the director of the Environmental Change Initiative, and we are so thrilled to host this seminar as part of our seminar series. It's a morning seminar for us, is unusual, but fantastic attendance and welcoming all of the students from Professor Coleman's class is just a real pleasure as well. I just wanted to mention, as I usually do, besides Happy Spring, that we have a seminar next week for the series. Dr. Susan Hegarty, she's a geographer and a professor at Dublin City University in Ireland in the School of History and Geography, and she's going to be in person. They're coming to visit along with the I think it's the chancellor of DCU is coming to Notre Dame. She's talking about engaging communities to monitor water quality in Ireland, citizen science for attaining the Sustainable Development Goal 6.3.2. So really exciting work. That's at 1 to 2 p.m. on Tuesday, April 18th in DeBartolo Hall. Our website has more info, but I'm going to stop because I'm so excited to hear our speaker today. And Professor Coleman is going to give the introduction. So thanks so much.
Great. Hi. Thanks, Jen. Thanks so much for hosting us. We're really excited. For those of you who aren't in my class, this is a wonderful collaboration between ECI and the American Studies Department and the minor in Sport, Media, and Culture. Our class is called Sport and Environment. And so when I was trying to educate myself about sports and environment, I did some research and I found some colleagues not too far away who have written a lot on it, and Sylvia Trendafilova's name came up, and I'm just so excited. I contacted her out of the blue, and I feel like we're fast friends now, Sylvia, and I look forward to working with you in the future. Professor Trendafilova is, well, a Bulgarian track athlete and physics major as an undergrad who found environmental science and sports management when she was at Baylor, and then went on to get her PhD at UT Austin in sports management. She has published a variety of scholarly articles related to our topic today. I'm not going to take the time to read the titles, but I'm really excited. She's really well positioned to give us a survey of the field of sport and climate change and sport and sustainability. She teaches a class called Environmental Sustainability in Sport at University of Tennessee, where she is an associate professor of sport management. And I should say, so the plan is the Notre Dame ECI seminar will last an hour, at which Professor Trendafilova will talk for about 45 minutes. We'll have time for Q&A. At 10:30, we'll let everybody who has things to do at 10:30 go, and I hope that the students in my class will stick around for an extra 15 minutes to talk to Professor Trendafilova and ask your questions. Okay? Wonderful. Thanks. Why don't you take it away?
Okay. Thank you so much, everyone. Let me share the screen. Okay. Okay, can everyone see this? Yes, good to go. So thank you so much for having me. And before I start, I want to say congratulations to you guys because you're doing so much about sustainability. Of course, I had to research, but that Joyce Center, you're so famous with the green roof. I mean, I read all about the other things coming to West Campus and recycling and Earth Day and everything. So congratulations. I have to be honest, it looks like you're doing more than we're doing, but we're trying. So I really want to say this is awesome for what you're doing there. So my goal for today is to give you a general overview of sustainability in the sport industry. And it's very designed for a broad audience, so there will be no technical statistical analysis and things like that. If you're interested in more of that information, you can always reach out later. So my goal is to present an overview of past, present, and future activities in sport and sustainability. So the first, I want to make sure I see my slides on this end. I want to share a little bit about my background and how I got where I got. I know Annie mentioned briefly about that. And the reason why I want to share this is I want to encourage your students to chase their dreams and not be afraid if they don't see the dots connecting, because eventually they connect. So again, I started at Sofia University with my undergraduate education in physics. I don't know why I did that. I had this passion for science, also with a minor in mathematics. And then shortly after that, my life story kind of changed 360 degrees, and I landed in all places in Waco, Texas. So I don't know if you know where this is located. This is a really small community. I'm talking about 30 years ago. So that was very interesting. I couldn't even speak English, believe it or not, but I'm kind of the social person. So I managed to do this. And I decided to pursue my master's degree in environmental science because I had this passion about the natural environment. I had the physics background. So I did work on my degree in environmental science, and mostly my work was incorporating physics and chemistry. So by the time I finished, I was, by the time I finished, yes, I was also involved with the track team, training with them. That's another story. And I realized that I really want to do something with sport. I really want to do something with sport. And everybody kept telling me, you can't really do much, like work-related professionally, unless you have the degree. And I said, so you're telling me I have to go back to school for another degree? So yes, the answer was yes. So what I did, I went back to school, Baylor, and got a second master's degree in sport management. So that was very interesting too. By the time I finished that, I realized how much I love teaching and research. So now what do I do with my life? And my advisor said, well, if you want to do that, you have to have a doctoral degree. I said, no, no more school for me. He said, well, that's the way it works in the United States. But now I was a little bit confused. So this is the lesson for the students. I was like, what do? I wasted my time studying physics, mathematics, environmental science, sport management. Is there any connection? Well, luckily there was. So I landed at University of Texas at Austin, interviewing with my future advisor. And I was so scared. And I said, this is what I know. Is there any connection? Because I don't want to waste all that knowledge that I have. And he said, absolutely. It's called environmental sustainability in sport. I said, well, what's that? He said, well, you have the environmental science education and the sport management. So you combine both of them, and it's called environmental sustainability. So this is how I landed at Texas. Now, that took me to the other orange, because everybody teases me, am I supporting the burn orange or the bright orange? Well, I landed after graduating from Texas with the bright orange. And I strongly encourage you, if you ever have a chance to make a trip to Tennessee for a football game, everybody should come, because this is just a madhouse. We do checker the stadium. Everybody wears orange. It's a great, great environment. So what I do now, this is my year 15 at Tennessee. I do research on sport ecology, and we're going to focus on that in a little bit. I just want to make sure, okay, I can see the title of my slides. So this is where I'm right now, and this is what I do. Okay, let's see now. Okay. Before we move more to talk about sustainability in sport in particular, I want to kind of cover briefly what is the definition of sustainability, because people use that buzzword all the time and sometimes they're not sure what it is. Well, sustainability is pretty much defined. The most used definition is, can we live our lives the way we live without compromising the resources for the future generation? So that's the shortest definition. Now, under the umbrella of sustainability, you have three components: the financial sustainability. So for any business, not just sports related business, how do you manage your finances in a sustainable way? You have the social component. Again, how do you manage your business to give back to the local community? And then you have the environmental component, which is how do you manage your business practices? How do you operate your business, minimizing the impact on the environment? Now, the other diagram that I have to the right with people, planet, and profit, another term that you may have heard is triple bottom line. Well, this is what it is. It's pretty much the same. So people sometimes say sustainability, sometimes they say triple bottom line. It's the same. So again, how do you operate your business addressing the people, the planet, and then the financial side? So that's what I wanted to briefly mention here. Now, feel free to interrupt me if you have any questions right now, if you need me to clarify anything or maybe take notes, and I'm okay if I'm interrupted. Okay, so now we're going back. Actually, I'm going to focus for the rest of my presentation on the environmental component. So again, sustainability is an umbrella with all three, but I'm going to focus on the environmental side because this is what I do. So what exactly is environmental sustainability in sport? The easiest way to describe that is how can we host sport events of all sizes, large, medium, mega events, small events, local events. How can we provide for participants to participate in sports, outdoor activities, recreational activities with minimizing the impact on the natural environment? And I'll tell you where the issue comes, because when I say that, sometimes I get emails from all kinds of people around the world. They say, so you're the lady that points the finger and doesn't want us to have sport and sport participation. I said, no, that's not the case. But the way I explain it, I do want the football stadium because I love enjoying football games. I do want to be able to rock climb or hike. But the issue becomes, it's not just the area that you're clearing for the football stadium. So let's say you have to cut X amount of trees to have the area and build the football stadium. We all want this. That's okay. We have to compromise. The issue becomes what I call it the chain reaction. After that, what do spectators want? They want the hotels nearby. Okay, well, then we start clearing more area to build the hotels. What do they want next? The restaurants. Okay, now we have to clear a larger area to add the restaurants. What do they want next? Shopping. So you see the logic. It keeps like growing and growing and growing. I call it the chain reaction. So it's not the facility itself. It's not the event itself. It's all other attached entertainment, hospitality that you have to provide. So this is what I'm trying to figure out. How can we do that? Because we are all crazy about sport. So with that said, you're probably asking yourself, well, why do we even care about that connection? Like, why is this connection so important? Well, it is important because the relationship between sport and environment is kind of a two-way street. First of all, the environment affects sports. And again, very briefly, you have issues such as air pollution, water pollution, noise pollution. You have issues with indoor air quality. When you play like indoor volleyball games, any other indoor sport participation activities, you have issues like this. More recently, what scholars have been addressing is the climate change. Well, it does affect sport. I had a student who was crazy about cycling in Tour de France. And a few years ago, they had a disaster event because of unexpected heavy rain. It had to be canceled, postponed. Again, things are happening because of climate change. So we have to be aware of that. But also on the other side, we have sport affecting the environment. I mean, you have fragile ecosystems that are developed for sport activities. One of the sports that has been heavily criticized is golf. So I'll get to that a little later. You also have noise and light pollution. One of the sports given here as an example is Formula One and the motorsports, because there was a community actually in Australia that was very resistant to allowing the building of racetrack there because of the noise. People don't want to have the noise from the cars. You also have issues with soil and water pollution from pesticides use. Again, the sport used mostly as an example is golf. You have the waste from construction, the spectators, the participants. Have you guys seen how a stadium looks after a football game? It's a disaster. I mean, it looks like a landfill. So it's really sad. And again, how do you acquire the construction materials? Are they delivered locally? Is there transportation involved to deliver these long distances? What kind of materials are they using? Are they recyclable, compostable? So there are a lot of issues of, unfortunately, sport affecting the environment negatively. And lastly, this is mostly related to outdoor use and outdoor recreational activities. For the class, I think Annie teaches, it's the soil compaction, the erosion, loss of biodiversity, and again, the decrease in vegetation cover. And they're all related. I mean, once you have too much of trampling and overuse, you have vegetation decrease, which leads to soil compaction, eventually soil erosion. So bottom line is, it's a two-way street. So what do we do? The research that we have done in this area is framed at Sport Ecology right now. So prior to that, it was named sustainability, environmental sustainability, but we decided that we really need to establish this as a subdiscipline in sport management. So we developed and established the Sport Ecology Group. This is organization of professional scholars and also practitioners. And I'll share with you the site later to give you more information. It was launched on Earth Day in 2019. And luckily enough, just a year later, it was officially recognized as a subdiscipline of sport management. Brian and Maddie Orr published an article in the Journal of Sport Management. If for those of you who don't know much about sport, I'm sure you know this much. In the field of sport management, there are subdisciplines such as sport marketing, sport finance, sport ethics, sport law. So again, now we have sport ecology officially, to the point that all of our professional conferences now have a track on sport ecology. So when you submit an abstract for a conference, the one in Australia and New Zealand, the European sport management, the North American sport management, we all now have a track as of this year, providing opportunities for students and scholars to submit papers in that category. But the quote I have here below is what we have on the website is, sport has unbelievable power for social change. And I'm sure you have read like sport diplomacy, community change. Just imagine the captive audience you have, crazy about sports and how much they can do to contribute to this sustainability issue in the sport context. I mean, here we have like 102,000 spectators. It's a captive audience. So keep that in mind for any change, whether it's environmental related or anything else. We are crazy about sport. There's no question about that. So use the power of sport. So with that said, there are two vital trends in the sport industry. The first one is there is an increased focus on environmental sustainability. What can we do? What kind of programs we can implement? The issue becomes that any organization has limited financial and human resources, and this sustainability aspect, it's not mandatory, it's not required by the government to have activities in this area. So when you have limited financial and human resources and you have to comply with the American Disabilities Act, you're going to push sustainability at the bottom of the list. But despite that, there is a trend again in increasing this environmental focus and doing as much as possible in any sport entity. On the other hand, we have the increased sport participation and also sport events. I mean, more and more people are getting involved in sport, spectators, participants, outdoor events. I did look at some numbers. One of the fastest growing activities is actually hiking. And we think there's nothing wrong with that, but there are issues with hiking too. So what I wanted to share with you is a couple of examples. So bird watching. I don't know if anyone does bird watching. I don't, but my partner recently bought a little book and he's obsessed now, sitting on the deck every day, counting the birds and trying to identify them. But let me tell you what the issue with bird watching is. So at the surface, you're like, what am I doing to the environment? I'm not damaging anything. I drive my car there, I have the binoculars, the little booklet, and I'm identifying birds. I'm not doing anything. Well, you can see some of the numbers here at the little illustrative image I have here. And it's a little bit outdated. I couldn't find recent numbers. It's almost like 300% increase in bird watching. So here is where the issue comes with sustainability in the natural environment. I have a lady friend who does that too. If you look at the demographics of who participates in that, it's people like me, old people. So again, we can argue of the definition of old, but it's elderly people who do that. Well, what becomes a problem is, just like my friend, she uses a walker to move around. So she wants really good accommodations to have the paved parking area with the restrooms so she can access that. And then maybe add like a little rail there so she can hold on to the rail walking around. Well, again, we're talking about this chain reaction. It's not just the nature with the birds. You have to provide those other accommodations. And this is when things get a little tricky with the negative impact on the environment. But I don't know if you have any grandparents, the students, parents who do that. It's a really cool sport. Again, it doesn't cost much outdoor activity, but keep in mind those issues. So another example I wanted to share with you. So unfortunately, I don't know who has what kind of hobbies. So I was trying to pick different things, is snowmobiling. So again, what is the issue with that? Well, the issue with that is that you have wildlife that is protected from hunting. And I don't know how many of you hunt, but they're protected areas. You cannot go within these boundaries to hunt. What happens with snowmobiling? Because of the noise, those animals get scared, they run away, and they run outside of the protected boundaries. Therefore, they're target for hunting. So again, it's not just, I tell my students, it's not this tiny circle, it's the bird watching or this. You have to think about the big picture. What are the implications? So again, snowmobiling alone, it's not a big deal. But again, what happens to the wildlife? Now, because of those trends in sport and the sport industry, we actually have two really big initiatives. This is ongoing. The first one is to reduce the ecological footprint of sports. Again, what can we do as practitioners and scholars and educators to provide for people to participate, to provide for the football games, but minimize the impact on the environment? And also, as I mentioned earlier, what can we do to use sport as a platform to bring this awareness? Because one thing we're finding, even through teaching my classes, people don't know. And if you don't have the knowledge and the awareness, you're not going to take actions. So this is what's happening. So a little bit about the history. This whole movement of sustainability, environmental sustainability in sport started actually in 1994. So this is what I call like the turning point. This is when things really changed for good. That was the Winter Games in Norway in 1994. For the first time, the organizing committee and the local community very carefully planned the games, minimizing the impact on the environment. How many trees are cut for the ski slopes, what is done for this event and that event, really, really careful consideration of the environment. Now, for, again, those of you who are not very familiar with sport, the governing body for the Olympics is the International Olympic Committee. So what they did, because it was very, very successful, the next year in 1995, and again, don't worry about remembering these dates, I'll share the presentation with you. The IOC decided to incorporate the environment as the third pillar of Olympism. Now, a little bit of sport history. Prior to that, the Olympic movement had two pillars. The first one was sport, and the second one was culture, because it wasn't just providing opportunity for people to compete in sports events, but also providing opportunity for people to experience the local culture. Well, now we have the third pillar. Now we have to address the environment. So what the IOC did, immediately they created the Sport and Environment Commission, the Olympic Charter, Agenda 21 was adopted, it has been revised, the Guide on Sport and Environment Sustainable Development. So starting in 1995, the IOC said, moving forward, each Olympic hosting community have to provide in their bidding documents sustainability. How are you going to build the facilities? How are you going to minimize the negative impact on the environment? That was a mandatory requirement for the bidding. And again, over the years of constructing those facilities, the IOC has a committee that oversees the progress or lack of progress. The other thing that the IOC did, they implemented the Olympic Games Global Impact Study, addressing the entire umbrella of sustainability, the social, the economic, the environmental aspect. Unfortunately, the issue with that is that the study needs to be done independently of the IOC and the local organizing committee. And usually it has been done by the local university and scholars working there. Well, the issue with that is that the local university is not going to show the dark side of what has not been done correct. So fast forward, this was canceled 6 years ago because they realized it wasn't after all a good idea. It was too much time consuming, labor consuming, and it wasn't really unbiased because there was still some bias in those reports. So unfortunately, it's canceled. But what are the issue with the Olympics? The issue with the Olympics are we have large sports facilities, and you may hear the term white elephants. So white elephants relates to the Olympics big scale facilities and what happens to them post-Olympics. So Olympics happen once 4 years and probably in a destination that will never ever have the Olympics again. So what do you do? How do you utilize those facilities post-games? And again, they're called white elephants. You have hundreds of thousands of spectators, athletes, media, coaches. So you have only 2 weeks of a lot of people in a very confined space. Well, that causes negative impact. You have concerns with transportation and utility usage. But on the flip side, because I don't want to provide just the gray, gloomy picture, the Olympics provide a great opportunity for testing. I call it the testing lab. Can we test new technologies? Can you test like something with water preservation or maybe like water pollution? So there is a great opportunity to use the Olympics to test innovations. So I'm going to go really quickly through the past. The first Olympics actually to provide this mandatory reporting was Sydney Olympics. They did really good. Again, their competition venues were green powered. They had really good transportation strategy with all kinds of opportunities for people to use the ferry, cycle, or on foot. So it was great. Sydney was a success. So everybody, including us scholars, were like, yes, we have the role model. Any Olympics past Sydney will be great. Greenpeace did their report post-Olympics. It's really good, big success. All these reports are publicly accessible. So if you guys are interested, you can read them. So the next one comes Athens. Well, Athens really improved their transport system. They had like network for pedestrians, a lot of awareness materials, really, really great. Except I have 2 colleagues who are Greek. When they started kind of building the infrastructure in Athens and digging into the ground, they came across these really ancient artifacts. And now like, oh no, what do we do now? So they were a little bit hindered by that. And what they did, they had like outdoor museums to preserve that, but it was a challenge. Unfortunately, overall, the evaluation was not good for Athens. This is what the handball facility looks like now. This is what the softball facility looks like now. They're not used. Again, talking about those white elephants, they're sitting there just in ruins. So the next one was Beijing. Well, again, if you're following the Olympics, the biggest issue with Beijing was the air quality. Everybody was worried about that. Beijing was, after all, not as bad as expected because luckily they had cooler weather, increased precipitation, and also the wind. So after all, the air pollution wasn't that bad. They also did really good job advancing the water sewage treatment system, utilize green resources, upgrade the public transportation, again, engaging the public. I don't know, again, how many of you followed that, but they shut down some of their manufacturing entities. They also had, depending on your driver's license number, you can drive on even numbers and then odd numbers. So again, they really try to minimize the concern with air pollution. So what happened after that? The picture on the left is actually their swimming facility for the Olympics. It was great. Post-Olympics, again, to minimize and avoid those white elephants, they converted their swimming facilities to the largest and best indoor water park. So if you ever go to Beijing, maybe Annie, you have to organize a field trip for your students, go swim. So really, really great success. Again, what do you do? How do you convert this to something else? So the community is really using this facility. Now, on the not so good side, this is their beach volleyball facility. This is their cycling facility, currently not used, just sitting there in ruins. I think they're using their cycling facility for people who are trying to get their driver's license. So that's why you have like the poles and the car here, not used. Next comes London, big success. Again, they were very careful that they had facilities that they could take down, temporary facilities. They really addressed sustainability. They had the first full-time sustainability coordinator director in charge of that. So very, very successful. Then Rio comes. Well, the issue with Rio was the water pollution. So they promised to reduce water pollution by 80%. They promised to build 8 water treatment facilities because of that. Again, they invested a lot of money in that. They promised to be the greenest ever Olympic Games. So a lot of promises. Well, the concern was it was so bad. And again, this is a quote, that you have a 99% chance of contracting a viral infection if you take 3 teaspoons of water. Really bad. There were a lot of athletes who declined their participation, didn't make it. Some were aware of that and decided to make it regardless. So this is how the water looked just a few months before the Olympics, just a few months. So I'm going to go really quickly through the pictures. So what did they accomplish? They promised 8 facilities, they built 1. So it was really like no long-term solution. If you ask me, it was a disaster. That was probably the worst of the Olympic Games that I have seen when it comes to sustainability and environmental protection. Post-Games, for the first time, they introduced golf at the Olympics in Rio. The golf course is not maintained and used. And I think what we need to think about here again is that big picture. First of all, what is the demographics in Brazil? I mean, do people have the financial resources to play golf? That's not a cheap sport. So overall, I think it was a bad idea for the IOC to introduce that. Their media center looks like this. Their practice pool for swimming is all kinds of algae and other stuff growing there. This is the Olympic Stadium. Complete disaster. Now we're moving to Tokyo 2020. This is a good quiz question for the students. When did the 2020 Tokyo Olympics take place? It was in 2021. Yes, because it's easy to remember the Olympics. But anyway, so Tokyo, I was really hopeful for Tokyo because this is like an advanced nation with a lot of technology. Again, medals were made from discarded electric devices, local timber, like really good. So I was looking forward to kind of evaluate their performance until the COVID hit. So as you know, spectators were not allowed. So we did try to do their evaluation in all 3 areas of social, financial, and environmental sustainability, and they performed really well. So, I mean, it's not really an accurate representation because you don't have the spectators, but I will still give them credit for doing really well. So professional sports, again, it started in 2004 with the Philadelphia Eagles. So how many of you are fans of Philadelphia Eagles? I don't know, but from the professional sports standpoint, a lot is going on. They have their green forest, planting trees. I mean, very, very committed to addressing sustainability. We also have at the collegiate level, we have Texas. They have the saying bleed orange, leave green. At Tennessee, the recycling bin that you see here, we say turn orange into green. So a lot of sustainability initiatives. The Pac-12 is actually leading in their sustainability efforts. They have conferences each year. So unfortunately, I have to admit they're doing better than the SEC. So really like a lot of things happening there. As far as recreational sports, the example that I use here is disc golf because I have done research on that. So in the past, and I'm sure those issues still exist, it's the soil erosion, lack of vegetation, decrease in vegetation, soil compaction. I mean, you can see on the pictures, like the second picture up there is an area where it did have the disc golf basket. It was removed, and this is 6 months later. There is still no grass growing. Now, on the flip side, really cool people playing disc golf. So there is a lot of potential actually to easily manage the negative impact of disc golf. Now, what's happening at the present? The good news is we have a lot of organizations now that can help any business in the sport industry to address sustainability. We have the Natural Resources Defense Council. I have the website, again, when I share my presentation. What they have done, they have really awesome report on what professional sport is doing. They have really awesome report on what collegiate sports are doing. They have case studies in those reports. I use them in my class. So I tell my students, when you graduate, if you want to look smart when you're interviewing for a job, read some of those case studies. It's free. You can reach out to the Natural Resources Defense Council, ask questions on sustainability. It doesn't cost anything. So again, why not use these resources? You have the Green Sports Alliance, what was established in 2010. We have worked with them. We have done Earth Day with them in collaboration. Great resources, again, in the sport context. You have the Sports Environment Alliance. We have one in the United States. We have another one in Australia. So again, all over the world. And lastly, of course, I'm biased here. We have the Sport Ecology Group. So a lot of resources that you reach out and ask, hey, I don't know what to do about this. Can you help me out? So currently, this is our student that I mentioned earlier, Annie. What's happening currently? So as far as outdoor recreational activities, one example is rock climbing. It was actually introduced for the first time at the Tokyo Olympics. Some of the issues are decrease in plant diversity, damaging plant roots, birds abandoning nests because of the human presence, waste. So those who participate in those sports. And lastly, I was a little surprised. I was reading about that. Maybe Jenny, you know more about that. They said the chalk is damaging the rock because of the chemical composition of chalk. So again, I'm not a chemist, but this is kind of like a recent issue that they're studying to see how bad it is and what could be done about that. Collegiate athletics, what's happening right now? A lot of use of solar panels, wind power, depending on your geographic location. Some places are not good for wind power and solar panels. Others are, like Arizona is great for solar panels. Ohio is great for wind power. Texas is great for wind power. A lot of changes in electronic media materials and tickets. Just this past year, we went to electronic tickets. So we no longer have like the paper tickets. A lot of recycling competitions, the Recycle Mania. So the way schools have like blood drive competition and recycling. So a lot is happening. Water preservation efforts, capturing like the rain, reuse of leftover food. So I read that you guys are doing that. You have a relationship. I was trying to remember the organization that you actually do deliver leftovers food. Transportation, there is a lot of different programs encouraging carpooling, such as I'll give you a little bit of ticket discount if you carpool. There will be a designated parking space for you if you carpool. So a lot is happening on collegiate campuses. As far as professional sports, my favorite is the Cleveland Guardians. They are the leader in the MLB. They have done incredible things. They replaced 75% of their office lights with LED. They have great recycling programs. They work with the local community. And they have this saying, our tribe is green. Are you in the tribe? Now, just last year, they changed their names. So if you think like, how is this related to the Guardians? They were the Cleveland Indians, but they're doing a lot. Paris is just around the corner next year. So as far as the Olympics, they plan to use 95% of their existing or build just 3 temporary facilities. Their whole philosophy is, can we fit the Olympics into the city instead of trying to make the city fit the Olympics? So they're doing a really good job. I'm in contact with the people there, so I'm really proud of that. 100% renewable energy and really, really good transportation to be able to provide for people to reach the facilities via public transportation and not drive. So I'm looking at the time. We have the United Nations, so that handbook was actually funded by them. They have their sustainability goals. Most of the area where I work and my colleagues is #1, the sustainable cities and communities. But again, great push for addressing sustainability around the world. So what's the future? Where do we go from here? Well, as far as collegiate sports, we all love competition. What I tell my students, you come up with the silliest, stupidest competition and people will sign up because we love that. So make like a recycling competition, make a competition of how many spectators will carpool or how many will bring like plastic or old electronics for recycling. So make it fun, engage the fans. I mean, fans love stuff like that. And again, we're obsessed with sport. Expand your sponsorships. So what I see coming up in the future is non-conventional sponsors. Usually people associate sport with Gatorade, Nike, Adidas. Well, those are the traditional sponsors. The non-traditional are waste management. And they are getting involved in sports. So why not think outside the box and have those non-conventional sponsors? Again, saving resources and gaining recognition. So a lot is coming up in the future. I'm optimistic. Los Angeles will be here, not far in the future. They are doing a great job. I spoke with their sustainability coordinator. They do plan to actually use 100% of their existing facilities and maybe a few temporary. Now, granted, they have some of the infrastructure because of the Olympics in the past. They plan to achieve zero waste. So for those of you who don't know what that means, my students said, well, how is it possible to have no waste? I said, no. Zero waste means that they're going to use recyclable materials. It's not that they have no waste. So can we again host the largest event in sport by using only recyclable products? So this is their goal. Increase accessibility to public transportation with new rails and subway lines. So I'm optimistic about Los Angeles. So we have to remain positive. So what's the future of the Olympics? You know what? Here is where I have like the biggest friction with the IOC, but we have to be gentle how we deliver the message. We have tried, even with that handbook that we wrote, Annie. The issue becomes that it is required to address sustainability in the bidding documents, as I mentioned earlier. However, there is absolutely no system in place to penalize if you don't meet your promises. And this is what's happening. So Rio promised, Athens promised, everybody's promising, we're going to do this, we're going to have 8 water treatment facilities, we're going to have this. This is all promise. There is no way of sanctioning the non-compliers. Now, what I have done is I have consulted with our attorney from the legal standpoint. I was like, is there anything we can do to punish those who don't do that? I don't know, because the question becomes, do you punish the organizing committee? Do you punish the IOC? I mean, who do you punish and how do you punish them? Like prevent them from hosting the Olympics again. And somebody suggested, how about we have Olympics at the same destination? I don't think the IOC wants that. So again, what do? Maybe more carefully consider the host city. Honestly, I think Rio was very politically driven decision to do that. So what do? I don't have the answer for you, but maybe the younger generations, the students will come up with something. Unless we have a system to penalize the non-compliers. I mean, think about that. If there is no punishment for you driving after a few drunks, you're going to keep doing that. So what do? Unfortunately, don't have the answer, but maybe there will be something in the future. So what's happening in the future? Another example is the motorsports. They have been criticized again for emission, for noise, for light pollution. Well, fortunately, we have Formula E. So this is what I call it, like the twin of Formula One, but the better version. So those are electric cars. What makes it very interesting, I don't know how many of you are fans of fast cars. I just love Ferraris and fast cars. So what's happening with Formula One, it's very interesting case. It was developed from the roots up as a sustainability concept. It wasn't like, okay, we have Formula One. Now what can we do to address sustainability? They started from the bottom up with this sustainability concept and the electric cars. Their first season was 8 years ago. So what they do, again, those who are interested in fast cars, motorsports, their reports are publicly available. So actually they have 8 reports published for the 8 seasons they have had. What they do, they actually have 4 pillars in their sustainability umbrella. They have the events. How can we host the events? Again, minimizing the impact. They also have the car design. Can we do anything more to improve? And usually it's related to the tires. So can we have tires, usually by Michelin, developed in a way that we can use them longer, because tires are not easily recyclable. So the second pillar is like the car design, tires, batteries. Can we make the batteries last longer? The third one is the community, where they have the competitions and the races. Can we do something about the local community? And number 4 is, they call it people, that's their employees. Can we teach the employees to recycle, to carpool, to do things like this? So they actually have 4 pillars addressing sustainability, but very, very interesting case if you guys are into that. Now, my other favorite example is Formula One. Again, I'm a huge fan of that. They have been heavily criticized. What I can share with you, because we conducted a study on the racetrack in Austin, Texas. So Formula One came back to the United States for their competition in Austin, Texas, 2013, 10 years ago. They hired the first ever in Formula One full-time sustainability director to coordinate and figure out how this could be done in a more sustainable way. And I'll tell you what they did. The facility sits 100,000 spectators. So let's see how awake the students are if they can do the math. They only built 20,000 parking spots. So if you have 100 spectators with 20,000 parking spots, how many are forced to use the public transportation or bike? 8,000. So that was a great, great solution to that. Now, granted, you're talking about Austin, Texas, and that was during the time of Lance Armstrong, where everybody wanted to bike, but they have great facility for biking. You can leave your bike there, you can shower, you can watch the race, great public transportation. This is how they force people not to drive. The other thing they did really well, it's a multi-purpose facility. So it's used for the X Games. It's used for concerts, because Austin is the capital of music. That's what they think. So again, multi-purpose facilities, but they have done a great job. So the Sport Ecology Group, for the sake of time, I'm not going to click on the link, but it's active. You can do that. Lastly, to wrap things up, I strongly encourage you, again, I'm sorry I may be biased because I'm one of the founding members, but there are great resources there for industry, for teachers, for students. We have a syllabus there. We have PowerPoint slides. We have the Earth Day coming up. Students can sign up for our webinars. We have a mentoring program for students. It's free. Everything is free. We have monthly meetings with students all over the world to talk about research and sustainability. So great resources. We have free readings. You don't have to pay to have the PDF of that reading. So again, this is like the best, and the goal is to make it free to everybody. We have experts from Australia, everywhere, like industry, big names. So use that. To conclude, the number of sports involved in sustainability is increasing. So that's really good because it's a great platform. The scope of initiatives is expanding. So they're doing more and more. Recycling is the easiest. Solar panels, wind power cost more. More green sports facilities. I'm not going to get into the LEED certification, but there are different levels of getting this certification. A variety of stakeholders, like I said, non-conventional sponsors get involved, and this is great. So again, let's be optimistic. So I'm going to finish here. You have my contact information, and I think, is it like 10:20? Maybe I left like 10 minutes for questions. So thank you so much. Thank you.